And welcome to, again, with hopefully no issues, Hitchhiker Stories from the Road. My name is Anthony. This is Mike again. And we are here live in studio for kind of the second time, but the first time ever officially, for Hitchhiker Stories from the Road. And what is Hitchhikers from the Road, or Hitchhiker Stories from the Road? It's where we sit down with amazing people in the community, learn about them, and find out what makes them tick a little bit. But before we get into that, let's reintroduce the man to my right, Mike Dziama. Mike, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Anthony?
It's I have Brad said the game's still not over. Yeah, no, we had some technical difficulties the first time around. Supposedly there was someone found the first video offensive and asked for it to be shut down. It was. We won't offend anybody this time around.
Let's hope.
Yeah, no, my face I guess offends people. I don't know, but Mike, let's get right into this. The show really is about finding out about people like you in the community, why they love Pearl Jam, what makes them tick, what makes everything, why they are the person they are today. So I'm going to ask you that question again, and let's dig deep into it. What is your first memory of really falling in love with music?
Definitely my father. He would play guitar to the family, and his favorite songs. He was a huge Neil Young fan, huge Creedence Clearwater Revival fan, and I think that was my first taste of music. And then I remember my cousin Alex, who was in a band, sending me this tape of Van Halen, Fair Warning, back in the early 80s, and that blew my mind, and I realized there was this amazing guitarist, Eddie Van Halen, of course, and from there, I was a huge Eddie Vedder fan. I was a huge Van Halen fan until the early '90s, and then of course, I fell in love with Pearl Jam, and the rest is history. But no, I've been passionate. I've loved music for a long time.
So your father got you into music, and it always seems like when we talk to people, especially on the show, that it does really start off with like your parents' influencing you, and then you kind of grow from that. So you said your dad was a Neil Young fan. You fell in love with Van Halen, Eddie Van Halen being the musician that he was, fantastic guitarist, really defined an era of music in the 80s and defined that guitar style that really was going to live on forever. When was like the first band that I guess would be Van Halen that was your band, right? Like that was
absolutely.
So your dad had his music you fell in love with, but that was your first band.
And it was my first concert too.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, my first concert was Van Halen with Alice in Chains opening up.
Oh, wow.
in October of 1990 at the old Memorial Auditorium in Buffalo. So I was born and bred in Buffalo, and that's the reason I'm here, because I'm seeing the Bills tomorrow play at Arrowhead and the Chiefs. So I'm excited to see the game, and that's going to be great. But yeah, my first concert was Van Halen, and just blew me away. It was so much fun.
I think for us, we live, music is like memories for us, right? Like we can go back to that moment. Like, do you remember that concert? Like, is it something that you can go back and kind of pull memories from?
Absolutely, yeah. I remember we were walking in, and Alice in Chains was playing Man in the Box, and I was like, I've heard that song. At the time, I knew who Alice in Chains was, but from that moment on, I kind of launched me into the Seattle movement, and I think that next year, my friend Sam, high school buddy, we were back from our first couple months at college, and so this was like October of 1991, and so that was the first time I heard Pearl Jam. So
okay.
I have to thank my buddy Sam, and when I first heard it, it was great. It took until the spring of '92 when they blew up. I was like, holy crap, he was right. For me, and then from that point on, I was just hook, line, and sinker. I ended up seeing Pearl Jam live for the first time in '93 at the CNE in Toronto. So it was Blues Traveler, Soundgarden, Pearl Jam, and then Neil Young headlined. And all my high school buddies, we all got back together and met up in Toronto, and great time. And I just, it's just that adrenaline rush, any live show, but especially Pearl Jam. That was the first time that, I loved Van Halen, but I really paid attention to the lyrics.
Sure.
It's just so amazing to a guy like Eddie Vedder who could just the feelings that he shared with us.
Sure.
It's just incredible. So.
Well, I mean, it's much different when you're listening from, Release and then listening to Hot for Teacher. It's two different parallels when it comes to the whole idea of what
Absolutely.
music,
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that people connect the most with Pearl Jam in general, and Eddie as well, is that, he is an open book. He really lets himself into his music, and then I think that's why we can relate to him, because listen, we're not perfect people. We have a lot of struggles in life, and then by him opening himself up to, us, then we're kind of opening ourselves up to him, and then it's just this connection that, a lot of artists just don't do. It's as much as it is, performing art, it's their job, and I think sometimes it just changes them a little bit, right? Where I don't think that has happened for Pearl Jam, where they're utilizing this platform for their feelings and emotions moving forward. So you said the first time you saw Pearl Jam was when it was the Blues Traveler, Soundgarden,
Right.
and then Neil Young was the closer. And that was in Toronto, you said, right?
That's correct. Yep.
So when you look back at that show, now did you go just for Pearl Jam, or was that kind of a...
Just for, I mean, I knew the other bands, but Pearl Jam was the draw, and we ended up, my brother Nick ended up getting tickets, thank you Nick, and he ended up, hooking us all up, really, because at the time it was a tough ticket to get, but the store he worked at, he was able to get them, but what about you, Anthony? Like, what drew you into music? Like, what were your first memories?
Well, tables are turning. This is the first. My first experience with music in general. My parents had me really young. So my parents were both 16 when they had me. So my father was, this is going back to 85. So my father, when 3 months after I was born, went to Live Aid. So, he was very big concert goer, big things, and we didn't have a lot in common growing up. But there was this connection we had with music. And, I remember, I remember being in, he had that, remember those Plymouth Blazers with, the headlights that go up and stuff like that? That to me was, the Batmobile back then. But you'd have that, and I remember listening to, Nine Inch Nails, and he was really big into, the heavier sound of the earlier 90s. So, I remember that, but the first experience with music was probably Dark Side of the Moon. I remember my father, so this would have been, I guess I'd been 5. He had just bought the Pulse album. Remember that one that was flashing? Mm-hmm. And it was, he got it from Costco. I remember this. And he had it up on that CD tray thing. And it was flashing. And so, but right next to it was Dark Side of the Moon. And I remember I was always fascinated about utilizing my dad's stuff. So their CD player sat there. And I'm just going to listen. So I remember putting on Dark Side of the Moon and getting lost in this album, and this whole magical journey of the music that was playing. Because, Dark Side of the Moon is really just one massive just concept of pure music and joy. And that stuck with me. And, growing up I didn't have a lot of friends, and I moved a lot. So I had a lot of people in and out of my life, but one consistent thing that I always had was music. So that was my comfort, my blanket was music always. The first time I heard Pearl Jam, and I need to get her on the show, and you might even know her because she's been around a long time. But Natalie Silva, she's from Long Island. She's on the boards. She and my dad dated for a short hot minute back in the early 90s. And when Versus came out, she had picked me up from school and she went to Pineapple Music on Long Island in Stony Brook, New York. And I remember she got the cassette and we were sitting in the car and she was going to put it in. And she didn't. And she was freaking out. And I remember what's going on? And I remember her being nervous about putting it in because she was nervous that it wouldn't hold true to what the first album was.
Right.
I remember her explaining to me, a lot of albums just don't hold up. And then we listened to it, and that I just remember sitting in her car. She had one of those Plymouth, those boxy old Plymouth, cars, and I remember just being mesmerized by what was coming out. It was just something different than anything I've ever heard before, and that was a hook, line, and sinker. And Yeah, no, that was then, and that was the first time I fell in love with Pearl Jam.
Wow, that's awesome, man. Yeah, that's
It just, well, we all have those different moments, where we kind of remember it. But isn't it interesting to us that if someone asks you what you wore for a T-shirt last Tuesday, you don't remember none of that. But if these concert moments and memories, they just live with us forever.
no, it's I can remember concert dates and just specific moments during the show, crowd interactions. It's just amazing. And now it's become the whole community. Just half the fun is just seeing old friends, making new friends. And my Pearl Jam friends are like family to my wife and I. And Danny, you know, she's amazing because she understands my passion for this, and I love her dearly, and she's seen Pearl Jam a ton of times too. So I gotta thank her for all these travels wouldn't be possible without having an understanding spouse. That's for sure. So
I 100% agree with you. I mean, you met my wife this morning. I met your wife a few times, but we really got to know each other a little bit in St. Louis. And it really does work well when there's that relationship where you both can be able to understand each other. Like, my wife doesn't get why I do this, or and I know it drives her nuts, but I mean, this house has been over the last 60 days a revolving door for my Pearl Jam friends, as I've had people here every weekend, and Ryan over here has been here almost, he's here at least once or twice a week, and it's great. But it's she doesn't understand it, but she allows me to do it. She's like, hey, listen, I know what this means to you. Music is different for her. She listens to music to just drive to work, where music to me is a comfort blanket, but it's good to have that yin to yang, and that makes sense.
Sure.
So now you travel a lot to see a lot of shows, I think, and we've definitely bumped into each other in many different states around the country. When you look back at your traveling and doing all of this, what really stands out to you about doing this? What does it all mean to you?
I think something I just said, just the friendships, the relationships, the friends I've made. That's what sticks in my mind. I think for me, I've been going to shows a long time, but at the time I moved to Detroit back in '96. I went to quite a few shows on the Yield Tour, the Binaural Tour, but fast forward to Lollapalooza, and Lollapalooza 07 was awesome because that was the concert where I met a lot of friends from around the world. I had just been to Europe back at Lollapalooza. The Detroit crew, the Pearl Jam Detroit crew, just giving you guys a shout out. Love you dearly, but we just hit it off. So after Lollapalooza, we Nixon from Detroit, we helped organize, just meetups. Hey, we missed each other, and we it's been great. It's just it's just gotten even better from there. So and I think a lot of people probably share the same stories. Just meeting lifelong friends. People who get it.
Sure.
I'm lucky that where I work, my colleagues and understand. They know I'm a huge Pearl Jam fan, so it's great that they understand to a point. But they're not fans, so they only they don't really truly get it. But no, it's those friendships we've made. It's been amazing.
Now, you mentioned Nixon, by the way, which he is such an amazing guy. Definitely, he's such a sweetheart and stuff. I definitely miss talking to him. He's a really cool guy. I've met him before. We've had quite a few conversations, and he's another person. It's like, if not for this band, and not for going to all these shows and having communication with different people, that friendship doesn't exist.
Right.
It's so interesting that you can sit in a room. Like, I've sat at a table recently with a person from Canada, a person from Utah, a person from Cincinnati, and we're all having conversations, and we're all talking to each other like we've known each other forever. And for the most part, some of these people are sitting at a table together for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
I think for a long time when you're doing Pearl Jam, you're chasing songs, right? Like, there's songs you want to hear. There's these check marks you want to get off. But then after a while, it's like, what are you doing? I'm gonna go see Pearl Jam. I'm seeing my friends, and then there's a concert later on. Like, I think that's what it turns into.
Yes, I agree. it's a beautiful thing, really. And I think coming off this tour, which was amazing, like coming off of COVID, and just music is so important to all of us, and finally being able to experience Pearl Jam live again this year. Last year, of course, they did See Here Now in Ohana, but just see them in arenas, and it just makes me want more and look forward to 2023. I'm hoping that they'll hit up the cities in the Midwest and East Coast that they skipped over this time. And do you have any cities that you're looking forward to, seeing them in?
Well, I will say this: if Kansas City, I will, first of all, it'll be the greatest thing for me, but my wife, I'm pretty sure, will divorce me. Because I can imagine what will come from a Kansas City show and how many people would be here. But it's great. I'll have to probably get her a really nice hotel up the road at
right.
Hey, Great Wolf Lodge for the night, guys. No, I like going to those random spots. I don't know if you know my Lincoln, Nebraska story, but I can tell it real quick. When they played Lincoln, I was home and I was like, hey, I had Tanya was like, hey, I have an extra ticket. I was like, I'll get it from you. And I was like, all right, cool. So I flew in, and I flew in thinking I was gonna go early because I wanted to go to Abraham Lincoln's log cabin, which I thought was in Lincoln, Nebraska. I thought Abraham Lincoln was from Lincoln, Nebraska. I don't know why. I was damn certain from it. And I swear to this day that I asked Heather about it before I left, and she says she didn't. I don't remember this, but anyway. So I fly in. I go to the airport. I land. I get to the hotel. I check all my stuff, and then I'm like, when you go on these things, you have extra clothes and stuff you're changing. So I go down to the lady at the desk, and I said, hey, I'm looking at these brochures and everything about Abraham Lincoln's house. Can you put me in the direction of it? And the woman looks at me at first she's like, is this guy for real? And she's like, hold on. And then she goes in the back and talks to someone, and the woman comes out and she's like, hey, I don't even know if Abraham Lincoln's been through here. And I just remember going, wait, what? So I literally, dumbass I literally went to Lincoln, Nebraska a day before Pearl Jam because I thought I was going to go visit everything Abraham Lincoln. It never happened. But what I did find from going there was they had these the food. I went to a restaurant that night that was really close to the venue that was fantastic. The people there were super awesome. Went to a brewery that I got to sample some beer at, and it was a cool experience that I'll never forget.
Mm-hmm.
And I dig going to places like that. I steer away from going to a New York show, and I steer away from I did LA in the beginning of the year, and as cool as the show was, and I had some cool experiences around it, but the city itself was just not for me. It's just.
Right.
It's just not. It's I said, hey, can I go visit places? If you want to visit somewhere, it's an hour drive, 10 minutes up, 10 miles up the road, and it's just. I'd rather go somewhere that's at hidden Missoula's than Lincoln, Nebraska's. Even the Oklahoma City was great.
Oklahoma City.
Yeah, that was fantastic. Those smaller communities, and I feel like the band feeds off that too. Oklahoma City was fantastic. So, I don't know. I'm hoping for Kansas City because I'm selfish. And I would love to have another event like we did in St. Louis here, but I can see Wichita or something like that, or I'll go wherever they go.
I hear you.
I gotta get number 50 off the list.
So what are you at right now?
I'm at 48.
You're at 48. Okay.
48.
That's incredible. You talk about the thing about this fan base so many fans tour so hard when we'll travel. It's just the numbers of shows that so many fans have been to. It just
Jesus
blows your mind. So
Brad wanted to let me know that there's a bunch of historical stuff of George Washington in Washington. So
thank you, Brad.
Jesus, and he said the Gorge is where I guess he wants it to go. So it's Jesus. Jeez. Anyway, Brad, I think because Brad real well. Brad just loves to, dig in you a little bit.
That's what I love about him.
Oh yeah, he's the older brother, the very much older brother. Anyway, so you're at what number?
I'm at 187 now for Pearl Jam, and Nashville was special because that was 185, and I held up this sign that said 180 or Smile 185 shows, and I've heard Smile before, but I had some friends chasing that song, and so I'm really glad they played it, and just Eddie acknowledging it, and the fact that Eddie acknowledges all the fans, like especially the fans that are camping out for GA. I really appreciate that he acknowledges the time and effort, but also just he cares. You can just tell that he cares about the things that we go through to do what we do.
Sure.
But anyways, that's why we love him.
Yeah, I agree.
Love the whole band, really. I mean, I think they're sounding better than ever. I think I hope there'll be some new material. Like, I don't know if they're sitting on anything. I heard rumors.
Did you read the article today?
I didn't. No, I didn't.
Did you read the article today, studio audience?
I believe that there's a new album in the works.
Correct. Andrew Watt, in his interview today, said he has been in the basement in the studio recording the new Pearl Jam album, including the mixes. I don't know if he was supposed to say that, as there was a lot of retractions and stuff, but there was 100% Andrew Watt in the interview he did. He had said that he has been in his basement studio recording and producing the new Pearl Jam album. So.
Well, that's amazing. I'm glad. An artist like Jack White released 2 albums this year, so I mean, I know that the Pearl Jam's sitting on some material, so it's good to hear Andrew confirm that. So.
No, it's good. So all right, so now we're going through Jack White. I have so many questions, but I want to know this one thing. So when you look back at 187 shows and you think about everything you've done at all of them and how they stand out, is there a top memory from all those shows that you hold the dearest to your heart?
That's a good one. Like, a lot of people ask me what's my favorite show, and I just can't pick one.
Sure, that's tough.
I could probably narrow it down to a top 10, but I think the one memory that stands out was in 2009 at the Spectrum Night 3. It's just, there was this energy that was palpable. I remember they went into, they opened up, I believe, with, it wasn't Why Go, because they opened up night 4 with Why Go. But in any case, that was just an amazing and an incredible show. And then, all my friends who were there, oh my God, it was just incredible.
So with the Spectrum shows in general, the fact that they were able to keep that energy going for 4 days, was fantastic. And I thought I was at the Halloween show, and that was fantastic.
Yeah, I was exhausted by then. I was at my all the energy from all. I remember holy crap! I got to get through this show, but I remember they played till 12:30, right? So it's just but no, what an incredible honor for them to be able to close the Spectrum and
the city was on fire too.
The
World Series was going on, so they had the scores going up. It
was the center of the world at that moment.
100%. It was crazy. So you think back, the night 3. It is tough when you talk about shows in general, because each show has different memories that elapse at different times in our lives and stuff. But is there a moment, a song, or a moment in a concert, or even not even around the concert that you that's important to you? I feel like sometimes I hold memories important to me, around certain people that are value more to me than it is with posters and stuff sometimes.
Yeah, it's tough to pick one out, Anthony, because I think back to the Vic Theater show in 2007 in Chicago before Lollapalooza, and just how lucky I felt to be in there, and just such a small venue. But I remember some moments my friend Sam turned 21 at the Baltimore 2013 show, and so Eddie Vedder, saw her sign, so gave her some wine. So that was a really cool moment, and I'm so happy when some of my friends get that sort of moment, and whether they get a tambourine or guitar pick, whatever it may be. It's really special. It makes it memorable.
And you've had a lot of moments yourself. You did Third Man Record show, right?
That's correct.
You did the Apollo show. And have you done did you do any of the ones in Seattle, the small ones?
Showbox.
You did? Jesus.
Yeah. So
holy shit. I don't know if there's many other people who could say they did all three. Because the Third Man Records, there's what, maybe 100 people in there?
It was, I mean, supposedly capacity 198, but they squeezed probably 250 in there. But that, I think, is the answer to your question from before. When Jack White took the stage for Of the Earth, that's the moment. So I'm glad you brought up Pearl Jam live at Third Man Records. But, my two heroes, Pearl Jam's my 1A, Jack White's my 1B. And the thing I love about Jack White is he's always challenging himself. He's such an original, like, he's always trying, whether it's opening up his own pressing plant or, his record stores. He's got one in London now, so he's Nashville, Detroit, and London. But it's just, man, he's such an amazing musician. That's why I'm glad a lot of our friends had the opportunity at Ohana to see him, because it put a smile on my face when I had friends messaging me like, Jack White totally killed it.
Yeah.
And but no, Pearl Jam live at Third Man Records, that was incredible. And the Showbox shows, man, that was I'm lucky to have so many amazing friends, because finding tickets is hard enough,
of course,
and without the help of my friends, I wouldn't be in these shows. Like half these shows, it's just I always feel like, I bend over backwards. Like if I know a friend needs a ticket, I remember like the Spectrum. I was going to the box office to try and find tickets for friends, even though I had tickets. So, anyways, I think that sort of karma comes back to you, and that's what I'm most grateful for, is just the community, the helping each other out, find tickets or whatnot. So.
No, I think that's fantastic, and I agree with you 100%. I have been to more shows without tickets than I have with shows with tickets, because I find myself like, you can find it, and I feel like in this community in general, they're really good about reciprocating the back and forth. I mean, hell, I sold your tickets because you were buying them for your friends in Charlotte, North Carolina, and that was that's 2013.
Yeah, 2013.
God,
where there's a will, there's a way.
100%.
Just never give up. Like I had friends who didn't have MSG tickets for this tour, and I just told them go. And at the pre-party, there was some tickets to be had. So, but long story short, always go to the show or try to, even without a ticket.
So now we were talking about Jack White, and I will say that there is I'm not nearly as big of a fan of Jack White as you are. I've seen him quite a few times, but there is this energy with Jack White, and I'm glad that you said something about Ohana, because anyone that went to Ohana that was going, a lot of people had made comments about Eddie's performance, and I can't really speak on that because I wasn't there, but everyone said that Jack White stole the weekend. That or St. Vincent. St. Vincent has climbed up my ladder of talented musicians that I just think are of the world of, guitarist and vocalist. To be able to knock both those out of the park, I speak highly of. So it's funny, we were talking, this is how small of a world this is, right? Brad, who comments on this show constantly all the time, was here a couple of weeks ago when he flew into Kansas City, was able to come to the St. Louis party, came over here, got to meet my family, and we went to Oklahoma City, and he was looking at the basement, he noticed my White Stripes poster. And we were talking about that, and actually the reason I was able to get that White Stripes poster is because we had communicated online. You got me in touch with the artist who was able to sell me his copy, because I was searching for 8 years for that poster, but but then we come to find out that we both were at that show together, right. And it's just, I'm like, the idea that like, you weren't even living in Virginia, I was. We went to the same show together, right? Now I'm living in Missouri. You lived like 10 minutes up the road, 30 years ago. And then it's like we both were at that show, and it's just like the whole way it just shows you how small the world is, and like how this all comes together. It's crazy. It
really is. There's so many, I always like, meeting new Pearl Jam friends, just talking about what shows we've been to and just how many common shows we had And it was like, we're eventually gonna meet, right?
Yeah.
We're going to all these shows, but no, that's awesome. I didn't realize you had seen the White Stripes back in '07, so that's awesome. I mean, that's obviously the last year they toured, and before they broke up. But no, just huge White Stripes fan, obviously. So
Yeah, no, there was bands like I was lucky enough to see the Strokes a lot in the early 2000s, and like the White Stripes and the Strokes were like, I remember like beyond, like at that time in my life, those were like bands that like as I was growing into being an adult or like a young man, like those were bands that like I latched on to. And I was able to see the Strokes a lot. White Stripes I never was lucky into until about 2007, but yeah, man, it was weird though, because I watched some of their earlier concerts and there was definitely more energy in those ones. You can see when I look back at, there's video of that show on YouTube, there you can see that there was definitely the energy was not.
there's starting to be some disconnect
Correct.
between Jack and Meg, and so yeah, that you're right about that. I didn't, I saw them 4 times in '07, so I'm very, very grateful and blessed that I saw them, the times I did. I didn't see them any earlier than that. I wish I would have. My buddy Steve, he saw them all the way back to like, 2000, I believe.
Jesus,
2001. Yeah, he's from Detroit.
So you got lucky enough, yeah.
So he got lucky and saw him, in some of the small venues they played. But yeah, wow, it's great.
Crazy. It just shows you, like I said, how small the world is. Now, is there any band you haven't seen live that you're waiting to see?
Probably the Killers. I've had tickets to the Killers like 3 times. The first time, the show was canceled by a freak windstorm in Venice in 2007. So that was the same bill that Pearl Jam was on. So the second time, they were playing, I think, Windsor, it's right across from Detroit, and Jack White announced a show last minute, and I was like, man, I gotta go see Jack.
Priorities, people.
And I see the Killers are touring, so I'd like to see them. Have you seen them before?
Yeah, I saw the Killers in Richmond. They played. There's a place called the National in Richmond. It's a small little venue, and like the Foo Fighters played there. Like Metallica's played. Like these are just, they pop in and play. And the Killers played there, and I want to say it was like 2011. And it was like right at the height, like really getting popular again, and I got to see it, and I liked it. But the Killers are not my thing,
right?
But it was good. It was but I think, like, and I was telling this before when we were sitting upstairs, like I've enjoyed, especially now that I have young kids, like I like going to concerts now. And if it's artists I've seen already, or if it's someone I'm not as into, or something I'm there for my kid, I like looking around and like seeing how people are interacting with it, because it's this connection. Like there's power in the connection of a person and music. Watching like someone, like when a song comes on and that person's been waiting for it, right? Like if you've been to a concert and you're standing around people you don't know, and let's say, I'll give you a perfect example. Porch is one that hits the nail on the head for many people, right? When Porch comes on and you see that person and they turn around and go, oh my God, I've been waiting for this song! This is my song! I've been waiting for it! Like that right there, that energy, if it doesn't put a smile on your face, or I think the one that really hits me too is, and I sort of said the Killers, is like somebody that heard that song, that needed to hear that song. That song means something to them that I'll never understand. But they needed that, and because they're hearing that, that's either they're coping with something, they're healing from something, or it's just something that connects them to something else that no one else in that room understands, but you can read it on them. That's the power of music.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And that's why I love going to concerts.
There's nothing like it, there's nothing like that adrenaline rush. There's nothing like, the emotion, and that's why we do this.
Yeah, 100%.
It's just, and that's why we're gonna keep doing this.
It's insane. It is absolutely insane. It's the day that the shows get announced. Any show, it's the build up to get tickets. It's the build up and anticipation to go, and it's just this roller coaster of emotions the entire time. And then it's the day of, and then it's like the lead ups. With Pearl Jam, there's a lot of There's a lot of events that go on around Pearl Jam, whether it's with, other organizations or with Touring Fan Live or whether it's with the other podcast community. There's a lot of people that put a lot of time and energy in to bring people together. And that's what's awesome about this, right? Like that we have that out in this world. And there's other groups that do that. I mean, My Morning Jacket and Band of Horses are doing that a lot nowadays. And even Jack White, there was one in Oklahoma City. People are getting together. And that's fantastic because music, right, is bringing people together that never would have known each other. Like the gentleman in our studio audience, Ryan. I mean, it's silly to think that it was a week ago. It was last week, a year ago, that me and him met for the first time. Happened to he saw me online and he knew I was moving to Kansas City. He was like, listen, if you're in the area, I'd love to, get to know you and meet you over. Had me over for dinner. We chit-chatted. Next thing you know, he gets his sister involved in selling me a house. That's a whole other conversation. And then from that, now he's working for me. So this whole idea of like how a band, this music, right? This guy 32 years ago joins a band, creates music that changes people's lives, whether he'll know it or not. And then from that linear of stuff brings people together that really shapes and shifts things in a different way.
It's amazing. I've had friends who've met at shows and gotten married. It's really brought people together. And I was just telling my friend this at, I believe it was the St. Louis show. We were just making general comments about concerts, and it's just like in today's world where there's so much divisiveness, we all agree on this one thing. We're all here to see this band we love, and that's a powerful statement. It's just, there's not many things, unfortunately, that we can agree on. Like in general. So,
it's 100%. It's in St. Louis. In that arena was a Republican, was a Democrat, was an independent, was an anarchist, was an antichrist, was a Satanist, was all these people in this room, but nobody talked about it. And that's what's powerful. Like we go daily, and it's like people have to form opinions, and that's fine. Everyone's allowed to form an opinion. That's great. But it's good to be different. But isn't it powerful that we can all go somewhere and enjoy one thing and not worry about what our other opinions are?
Right.
And that's more powerful.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, Pearl Jam's been 187. Are we gonna get to 200 next year?
I sure hope so.
13 shows.
Yeah, I mean, I think I did 10 shows this year. So if they tour, pretty couple good sized legs, I should be able to do it. So,
is there anywhere you want to see them?
I'd like to see them in Portugal or Spain. I've seen them in Italy before, and I hear, especially Portugal or Spain, the crowd is almost as good or better than Italy. South America is legendary, so that's just I've never traveled to South America, so I don't know if I do it, but that would be fun if possible. But Australia is like, I mean, there's rumors of an Australian tour. That would be just totally epic to be able to visit Australia for the first time and see Pearl Jam. But what about you? Any destinations that you've dreamed of seeing Pearl Jam in?
There really is, and I've thought hard about this one too. There's one place I really would love to see them, and they've never played there before. And I think the White Stripes did it right by doing it. I'd love to see them in Alaska.
Oh wow!
I think because here's the thing: if Pearl Jam came out tomorrow, and said, and if you don't agree with me, I'd love to hear that too. But if Pearl Jam said we're going to play 4 nights in Alaska at this arena in Alaska, there's no doubt in my mind that sells out in 10 minutes.
Absolutely would.
And that would bring how much that economy that they would probably never see that again. Like because it's something it's a destination, right, that most people would never be able to go to. And then also it's the band playing 4 nights in Alaska. I mean, that's fantastic. Now, I don't know if they play in December. Probably more like a July show. But, I think... No, I really would... I just kind of want to go to different places. I think, my morality has really sunk in over the last couple of years. Like, you start realizing that, like, you're getting older, you're not getting younger. I want to see different places that I go to once, and it's probably the only time I ever go there, but I get to take it in. And I think, you can only go to MSG so many times. You can only go to Boston so many times. You can only go to Seattle so many times. It just feels like you're doing it over and over again, It's like, I don't understand those families who do Disney every single year. Like, how many times can you ride, the damn, the whatever the hell that's, the Haunted Mansion before you realize, like, it is what it is. Like, give me something different.
Exactly, I agree. I want something new. I want something different. That's why any destination I've never seen Pearl Jam at. That's definitely on my bucket list. So.
Well, let me ask you this, because I've had theories, and me and Brad have talked about this, and a lot of people say they go to Canada. A lot of people would say they go to Alaska. I will say this: if they were the rumor about Australia being February, I would assume they would have announced that already if that was the case, because you're getting close, and if you're gonna fly there, you'd have to be booking that stuff now. So me personally, I don't think an early 2023 Australia tour is gonna happen. If it is, it's gonna be like end of next year. Right. That's just my opinion. But we'll get to that in a minute. But let's get back to what my original statement was, that I've lost that. So we're going to go right back into what I was just saying. Australia. I think the Gigaton tour was so weird because you had a year of an album and no real true tour, right? And most people knew the words to everything. They had formed an opinion about it before they even started anything live, and it was just a weird situation. And the band aged and was different before they played any of those shows. I think Gigaton is going to be the album that people look back in 10 years and give them weird feelings because it's just so different. The band changed so much between the pandemic and the album that it was never given to us during the time of them recording it. So when they recorded it, and what the album was for is to be this aggressiveness towards Trump at the time, we never got that. Right. So we're getting them playing it. It'd be almost like, and I said this the other day, like, what if they had recorded Bush Leaguer? They had a pandemic, and then Bush is out of office, and they go to play Bush Leaguer on stage.
Right.
How's that? How's that affecting anybody right now? Right. So, I really do think we are in need. I think I'd almost like them to tour a little bit with the new stuff, before, almost like they did Lightning Bolt, like Wrigley. I remember how exciting was that? Like, first of all, the whole lightning storm, but how exciting was it that they were playing new stuff, and everyone's like, "What is this?" I want that again.
Yeah, and that's they've done it before. Whether it was Vitalogy songs or even Versus songs that they had in the can for 2 years. So, and it's a great way for them to test it out on the road. So that'd be cool if some of this new material, if they do end up touring in 2023, it'd be cool if they kind of tested it out on us and. Kind of surprised us maybe with a couple new ones. So
music is set in, there's a lot of ways that music is set in our life for different moments, like soundtracks to our lives, right? Like we always said soundtrack. Now, do you have kids?
I do.
And how many kids do you have?
2 kids. I have a boy and a girl. My daughter Amanda's 28 and my son Cameron's 24. So we're empty nesters. Oh, geez. Which helps for touring.
A little bit, definitely. Your daughter, is she married?
No, she's not.
Now, I now this is crazy to think this. I don't know, Ryan, if this is something you think about, but music, I think of soundtracks and I could do things. So I already know, when my daughter gets married, what song we're dancing to. Have you thought about that?
Yeah, I just can't afford a wedding right now.
Okay, well,
but she's 12, man. but yes, I know exactly what you're talking. It's gone through my head. Yes.
But I mean, do you think about things if there's a song that's important to you? How it's gonna you're gonna bring it apart and have you thought about if your daughter gets married in 3 years, have you thought about the song you'll dance to her with?
I have actually, and it's not even a Pearl Jam song.
mine either.
Yeah, it's a Neil Young song, Harvest Moon. I think would be beautiful. So, but do you have what would be your song?
Mine's a Billy Joel song.
Oh, okay.
And I'm by any means a Billy Joel fan. I did live in New York. But and it's crazy. I don't know if you watch Adam Sandler movies, Netflix, and all that stuff. So there was a movie called The Week Of, and it had him and Chris Rock in it and stuff like that. And there is this song called Lullaby that Billy Joel sings and stuff, and they fucking dance to it in the movie too. And I'm like, wait a minute, I thought this was my song, but they did it. And dude, I've watched that movie embarrassingly 30 times, and the movie's only went out 3 years. But every time I'm all right, I'm not gonna cry during this part, and I cry so many crocodile tears during this damn scene every time, because I'm I picture me and my daughter doing that. But
No, there's songs that come into my life at times, and I'm like, I am like, I know what I'm gonna do with this one day. Like, this is gonna be that. So, and you said, wow, Harvest Moon, yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Ryan, you haven't thought about it though.
I have. I've got some ideas. It probably there's a couple different first concert I ever took my daughter to was Paul McCartney when she was 4, and she pretty much knew every word to every song that was being played, and it would probably be a Beatles or Paul McCartney song.
Oh, okay, that's great.
That was kind of our first music outing together, and we were on the big screen. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Now, do you have either one of your kids gotten into Pearl Jam at all?
Not really. I think they just, and I always admire my friends whose kids are into them, but they have they have really good taste in music, and they love music. That's the important thing.
Yeah.
They both go to concerts, so I'm happy about that because they get it. As far as the passion for music. But earlier today when you told me you were going to shows with your daughter, that made me smile because it's that bond you're creating. It's amazing. So.
Yeah. I mean, so I have most of I've talked about my daughter Charlotte. She's 6, and she has taken a passion to music that. Like it hit like as soon as we moved to Missouri and we got she kind of separated herself from my in-laws a little bit. She started finding her own way, like become her own person. Like she wasn't so dependent on having Heather's family be there to the backbone. So she started getting into music a little bit, and then she started getting into her own music, which was important. And yeah, we went to a show the other day that was something like I want her to see female artists front and center, being powerful, showing her that she can do that. Because I don't believe that there's there's not a lot of positive female role models that aren't just being half naked online that girls can look up to. So I want her to see someone that has a voice or playing an instrument that's doing it online that doesn't have to utilize sex to sell, right? And so we've been to a few shows, but Wolf Alice was this one that we both kind of had on a calendar. We bought tickets we bought it when we bought our house here in March. I had purchased the tickets to Wolf Alice the next day. And when we went, she was front and center, knew word for word, and the band, she got a set list, she got drumsticks, she met the whole band, got autographs, and there is this desire for people to bring kids to shows because they get stuff, right? If you talk to my daughter, like you talked to her today, there is a true joy and excitement from her stories about this. Like when we went and stood outside, I'm like, Charlotte, she met the bass. I'm like, hey, if this is fine, we can go home. She goes, no, I want to meet everybody. And I stood off to the side, and every picture, if you look online, it's just her. Because I don't want to take that from her. I don't want to. This is about you. It's not about me. It's a you thing. And I remember her going in the car, and she had the CD that she got signed, and she's holding. And first of all, she has no idea what a CD is, by the way. It's almost like we got home, and she's like, "What do I do with this?" And I'm like, "Well, that's where music is. That's how you play music." She's like, "What do you mean? It's on my iPad." I'm like, "Oh, well, okay." But there's a picture of her, and she's holding that for dear life, and like she's in the car sleeping with it, and that was like that. I felt, and I'm like, you know what? This is what it's all about. This is 100 what it's all about. And the fact that like she's playing drums and all, it's fantastic. And I'm like, I got my kid doing sports, and I got her doing music, and Brad just friggin' Brad saying crocodile tears are fake tears.
I almost said that.
Assholes. But no, yeah. So it's great stuff. But no, yeah, I love it, and I love that you're. So what kind of music do your kids listen to?
So, my daughter loves Fleet Foxes. She loves my son, we all agree on Jack White.
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
We, on the 2012 Jack White tour, we all went to Omaha and saw the Omaha concert, and then went to Denver for the Red Rocks concert. So that was a lot of fun because, seeing them enjoy the music, Danny and I like, makes me, it just puts a smile on your face, just like, I did something right.
Now, have you met Jack before?
I have. So, met him at Third Man Records in both Nashville and Detroit. It was just random. Like, I was in the store at the time, and he was either coming in or out. The time I met him in Detroit, we actually had a brief conversation. It was right before the Pearl Jam shows on the 2018 tour. You know, they were playing Fenway Park that next week or two, and we talked about that a little bit, just because at that point we knew, you know, Eddie and Jack had this bromance going, so total, and so, you know, two of my heroes are getting along. That's just amazing. But no, Jack, been very lucky to meet him a couple times, and you know, I actually met Ed a couple times just in passing. The one time was after an Eddie Vedder solo show in Memphis, so we were just hanging out at the hotel bar, and you know, he came walking in, and it was cool because you know I told him, you know, thank you for staying true to the music, and you know, he shook my hand in his baritone, you know, you're welcome, or thank you, and just it was cool that you know he's so down to earth, you know.
Yeah.
It's like I'm so glad our musical heroes are not prima donnas, you know. It's nice to know that they care and they're down to earth. So
No, that's awesome. I've gotten lucky to meet some of the band members. I've met all of them except Stone, and no, they've all been they're exactly what you expect them to be. Because sometimes when you meet people, you know, they're just not, you know, what you're expecting, and then sometimes that can ruin that moment.
oh yeah,
And that always sucks. That always does suck.
yeah.
So here's a tough question. I don't think I've ever asked anybody this, but I'm going to ask you. What is the worst show you've ever seen?
I think
Not
it's
Pearl Jam in general, but anything in general.
Oh gosh. So we were in Poland, and it was '07, and it was this Polish punk band. And it's, you know, I don't hate punk at all. It's just the environment. We were so squished in there. So I think they were a good band. It was just, I guess that concert was my least favorite. You know, it was this Polish punk band, and then Linkin Park, and then Pearl Jam. I just could not enjoy the show because the pit, like, we were like sardines. So so that would probably be my least favorite because of that. You know, like, I just couldn't enjoy it.
No, that was you know, when I look back, I had posted a question today about like who was your favorite, who would you want to see open up for Pearl Jam? But 2007 had 2005, 2006, because My Morning Jacket did that, and Van Horse and Labor. 2007 had a lot of like I forgot about Linkin Park.
Europe, yeah.
Because Sparta opened up for him.
Did.
That was another fantastic band. God, there was a lot of good openings.
Yeah.
I totally forgot Linkin Park opened up for him. That was the only show too, right?
It was supposed to, that was the only show, because it was also supposed to be Venice, but Venice ended up getting canceled.
Yeah.
So, but I believe that was the only show that they opened up. And then I remember Chester mentioning how Pearl Jam influenced them at the time, just with just what they put into, you know, how it was, you know, their state, you know, Pearl Jam's stage set is pretty minimal. There's no fireworks and shit, and then just the passion they showed. I remember Chester mentioning that, and it helped influence them and in their shows to come.
So I'm gonna ask one big final question. Are you ready for it?
I'm ready. Bring it on.
Well, first I want to say this. You know, minus the first big error in the beginning, I think this went off without a hitch. You know, honestly, and I think I figured out why it went off, and that's fine. That's a whole other conversation. But when you think of Pearl Jam and what it means to you, because I mean, and I know there's other music that's meaningful to you, but I think our connection and this show is definitely around Pearl Jam. When you think of Pearl Jam and put your head under the pillow at the end of the night, what does Pearl Jam mean to you?
Everything, really. Like, they've got me through the hardest times in my life. I remember being back in college, you know, having a 1-year-old, just the struggle of, you know, making ends meet. And then, you know, I remember, you know, 96 when they released No Code, my favorite song is Present Tense. So it's just like, you know, that power of perspective and, you know, living in the present tense, and it's taught me so much. I think you know, they're the voice of our generation, really. You know, I just, you know, they mean everything to me, for sure.
And that's awesome. I think for the most people that are actually watching this and that tune into this and do things, I think that we can all agree on that. Like there's this idea of a soundtrack to our life and momentaries that definitely fit into a musical fold, like how songs fit into our day-to-day life and how a certain song means something to us but nothing to nobody else. You know, I think that's what it's all about. And I think, like, you know, Present Tense is a great example. Did you go to see her now?
I did. Yeah.
That Present Tense was probably the most shaking moment, you know, because it was just like we're living through all this, we're there, and living in this present. That was huge.
It's
But
perfect.
no, definitely. Well, listen, I thank you so much for being here. I'd say thank you for coming on the show, and I'll talk to you soon. But we're literally this is over, and we still got shit to do.
We're gonna hang out.
That's right. Oh, we got clapping in the audience. I didn't That's right. But no, I do thank you. And the good thing I can say about Mike, and I really want to put this out there, is you are a genuine person. I've known you for a few years in passing, and we've talked a couple times, and you do go out of your way for people, and that's well respected, and I appreciate that. But no, it's good stuff, and I'm hoping things go well. I hope both teams lose against the Chiefs and the Bills tomorrow, because I can give two shits about either one. I mean, I hope the Patriots win and they lose everything. That's it is what it is. But listen, we have more shows lined up for the rest of the month. Definitely check it out. We have a Halloween show for Let's Talk Vinyl. Me and Trey gonna be talking about bugs and ghosts. And drinking some new local wine that I just found out about that is Pearl Jam in influence, thanks to Ryan Blackwell. And then we're going to be doing some other stuff. We have some shows lined up for next month. We have a special guest coming on for Hitchhiker next month. That's a big heavy hitter that's got some really good stories. I don't know as big as Mike, but definitely damn close. And then some other big things in the works. So definitely thanks for tuning in to the Touring Fan Live. And let's see, do I have all these things going? I'm still trying to figure this out. Until next time, I'm Anthony. This is Mike, and thanks for tuning in to Touring Fan Live's Hitchhiker Stories from the Road.